no one wants somebody who can't get around. It's a big wet blanket. So the thing to do is to get mobility. No question about it. It's the right way to go. I would recommend that.
The dogs are so careful. They stop at intersections. They listen and look, and Brian has to listen. He can't look, but it's not just completely up to the dog. It's up to the owner to know where he's going and what feels safe too. The dogs are so perceptive.
I think the sense that most people don't recognize that you might sharpen up after a loss of eyesight would be your memory. This is very important. And most people who have lost their eyesight, I think, have very good memories. And that's a real good asset. As to the hearing or smell or whatever, I don't think it improves. I just don't, that's not an issue.
Yeah, memory is a funny thing. You wonder how he remembers everything that he remembers. But when you're interested in something and you really want to, you can. A lot of us don't use everything that we're capable of using.
I think as to what blind people remember or not, I think it's built on not on a visual remembrance as much as a conversational remembrance.
He's good at picking up voices, as one does on the telephone. You know how every voice is recognizable.
I think you might have more time to think about things, and you can't rely on a piece of paper with somebody's name and phone number. You have to remember it. Now, as to how I get the news, that's an interesting point. American Foundation for the Blind has a system where you can telephone on an 800 line the newspaper of your choice. So I do that every day. And there are certain columns in the papers that I happen to like. So I'm right up to date. 250 newspapers, I think, are in that system. And people dial them. They say they have 40 or 50,000 subscribers. So then, of course, the radio is there. I don't like TV as much because there are big gaps and silences when they, like they say, well, there goes the ball, and you don't know what they're talking. See, radio, they describe it much better. If you want to listen to a baseball game, I recommend to everybody they turn down the volume on the TV and have a radio, because they describe the action much better than the fellows who do the analysis on the TV.
He went to the office one day with a black shoe and a brown shoe. So, no, I don't check him out. That's bad, I know. I should. And his secretary said, "Doesn't Beth check you out before you leave?" And he said, "No, I might have years ago." Look, he's got to learn how to live alone, too. When I had my back surgery, I was away and out of the house for 7 weeks. And he fixed his own breakfast. I mean, he poured his Cheerios in a bowl. He does that most days anyway. And milk and juice, that's easy enough to do.
These are much better days than the old days. Don't anybody kid you about it. On many corners in White Plains, we have an audible signal. That is coordinated with a visual signal. Just so you know, the visual signal costs about $150,000 or more a corner. The audible signal costs about $1,000 a corner. It makes a sound which it tells you it's all clear to cross. And there's one sound for one direction and another sound for another direction. I actually had a good friend of mine, the late Leonard Green, who owned the Safe Flight Instrument Company and was at one time the president of the International Society of Test Pilots. I called him up one day and I said, "Leonard, they're building a building here on Hamilton Avenue, big boulevard, at the corner of Church Street, and they've hit a ledge of quartz granite. There's nothing harder than the quartz granite in the world, except diamonds. So I said, they tell me they're going to be drilling out there for 18 months. It's really dangerous to cross the street because you can misdirect your dog. That could be serious. So he said, let me work on it. To his great credit, he sent 4 engineers to that spot for 3 days, and they worked out the system that is running today. And now you hear them all over the country. What we did in White Plains was the first ever of this, nothing like it anywhere else. And then, of course, it got to be the standard. I'm the one that chooses the sites. I find a good site that needs an audible, and I call them up, and they come out, and they've never disagreed with me. And so I had a little role to play in that.
It'll change in a minute. There'll be another audible sound coming in. There we go. Quick play. Hey, quick play.
I think the worst thing people can do is to retire. It's a terrible mistake. First of all, they take a terrific pay cut when they do that. Number 2, you know, they're no longer active. They're just wound down, sitting around on a chair, watching the world go by, reading a book, which is very good to do in the evening, but I just can't imagine it, just sitting around every day. As to my personal retirement plans, I have none. I'll be 80 in June. I think I'm good for 10 years. People ask me about my lifestyle, and I don't understand their thinking, their philosophy, because most people, when they get to be senior citizens especially, seem to coast down. They don't do much. You don't see them out there on the ice rink. You don't see them swimming. You don't sometimes, but you don't see them biking. And they stay at home and they sit in chairs. And a chair can be a very, very serious and big mistake. People protect themselves too much. It's ridiculous. If you keep yourself physically fit, you will extend your life, and you'll have a better quality life. I would say, according to what I understand from those that test me, that my oxygen level's at 100, my pulse is 49, my blood pressure is so superior, so low. I don't tire. I can do just about anything physically. That I would think I'm as in good shape now as I was 30 years ago. Routinely, I must swim about 100 times a year. I go to the YMCA here in White Plains routinely.
At our local YMCA, years ago, they didn't want to accept a blind swimmer. Too much of a risk or responsibility. Then it was encouraged years later, so he's been doing it for 20 years or more. I never doubted that Brian couldn't do whatever he wanted to do. When he decided he was going to take up ice skating again, having done it as a kid, as all of us did, of course he could do that. It never entered my mind to doubt anything that he could do.
It's a great thing to do. Ice skating rinks are not banked. They're flat surfaces. And they start making your crossovers. You have to know when to do it as you make a turn. So you need somebody around. There's always a nice person around that will go along with you. I have met some of the nicest people. Skating is very social. The most social sport I can think about right now for me is ice skating. They're really, good friends. We get to be good friends. Every Sunday, I get my skates on, I go out to the rink, I meet somebody, and off we go for about 2 hours. And of course, when my loss of eyesight never stopped my sport stuff. I've always liked that. No, it doesn't slow you down at all. Sports are very important for you. And, if you do all that, your knees don't hurt, your back doesn't hurt. Not only good for you, but it's fun. Why not have fun? What's wrong with that?